Yuki-Onna, the Lady of the Snow. Midwinter gloom, the earth enshrouds, yet from the sky the blossoms fall. A fluttering shower, white petals all. Can spring become so soon beyond the clouds? Snowtime in Japan has a beauty peculiarly its own, and it is a favorite theme of Japanese poets and artists. Both, for the most part, treat it artistically, as well as they may do, seeing that in Nippon, the white flakes fall upon the ornate roofs of Buddhist temples, upon the fairy-like bridges resembling those we have seen on willow pattern plates, and upon the exquisitely shaped stone lanterns that adorn so many Japanese gardens. The ideal snow scene is to be found in Japan, and because it is so particularly beautiful, it is surprising to find that Yuki-Onna, the Lady of the Snow, is very far from being a benevolent and attractive spirit. All the artistry and poetry of snow vanish in her malignant presence, for she represents death, with attributes not unlike that of a vampire. But Japan is full of sharp and surprising contrasts, and the delicate and beautiful jostle with the ugly and horrible. There is no promise of spring in the long white form of Yuki-Onna, for her mouth is the mouth of death, and her ice-cold lips draw forth the lifeblood of her unfortunate victims. The Snow Bride. Mosaku and his apprentice Minokichi journeyed to a forest some little distance from their village. It was a bitterly cold night when they neared their destination and saw in front of them a cold sweep of water. They desired to cross this river, but the ferryman had gone away, leaving his boat on the other side of the water. And as the weather was too inclement to admit of swimming across the river, they were glad to take shelter in the ferryman's little hut. Mosaku fell asleep almost immediately he entered this humble but welcome shelter. Minokichi, however, lay awake for a long time, listening to the cry of the wind and the hiss of the snow as it was blown against the door. Minokichi at last fell asleep, to be soon awakened by a shower of snow falling across his face. He found that the door had been blown open, and that standing in the room was a fair woman in dazzlingly white garments. For a moment she stood thus. Then she bent over Mosaku, her breath coming forth like white smoke. After bending thus over the old man for a minute or two, she turned to Minokichi and hovered over him. He tried to cry out, for the breath of this woman was like a freezing blast of wind. She told him that she had intended to treat him as she had done the old man at his side, but forbore on account of his youth and beauty. Threatening Minokichi with instant death if he dared to mention to anyone what he had seen, she suddenly vanished. Then Minokichi called out to his beloved master, "Mosaku! Mosaku! Wake! Something very terrible has happened." But there was no reply. He touched the hand of his master in the dark and found it was like a piece of ice. Mosaku was dead. During the next winter, while Minokichi was returning home, he chanced to meet a pretty girl by the name of Yuki. She informed him that she was going to Yedo, where she desired to find a situation as a servant. Minokichi was charmed with this maiden, and he went so far as to ask if she were betrothed, and hearing that she was not, he took her to his own home, and in due time married her. Yuki presented her husband with 10 fine and handsome children, fairer of skin than the average. When Minokichi's mother died, her last words were in praise of Yuki, and her eulogy was echoed by many of the country folk in the district. One night, while Yuki was sewing, the light of a paper lamp shining upon her face, Minokichi recalled the extraordinary experience he had had in the ferryman's hut. "Yuki," said he, "you remind me so much of a beautiful white woman I saw when I was 18 years old. She killed my master with her ice-cold breath. I am sure she was some strange spirit, and yet tonight she seems to resemble you. Yuki flung down her sewing. There was a horrible smile on her face as she bent close to her husband and shrieked.
It was I, Yuki-Onna, who came to you then and silently killed your master. Oh, faithless wretch, you have broken your promise to keep the matter secret, and if it were not for our sleeping children, I would kill you now. Remember, if they have aught to complain of at your hands, I shall hear, I shall know, and on a night when the snow falls, I will kill you.
Then Yuki-Onna, the Lady of the Snow, changed into a white mist, and, shrieking and shuddering, passed through the smoke hole, never to return again.